Well, good afternoon, everyone. My name is Mighty Stream. I'm brought to you by Hope Through Navigation, and this is our Hood Recovery Services. I'm looking forward to doing the Just for Today in a meditation with you. If you need to reach out to me, please do so at recoveryofhope21@gmail.com. Let's go ahead and get into the Just for Today for today. And let's see here. Okay. That one was actually the newer one, Spiritual Principle a Day. And I will do that after I finish the taping for this one. Let's look at July 13th, humility in action. If we are hurting, and most of us do from time to time, we learn to ask for help. Basic text, page 83. Sometimes recovery gets downright difficult. It can be even more difficult to get humble enough to ask for help. We think, I have all this time clean. I should be better than this. But the reality of recovery is simple. Whether we have 30 days or 30 years clean, we must be willing to ask for help when we need it. Humility is a common theme in our 12 steps. The program of Narcotics Anonymous is not about keeping up appearances. Instead, the program helps us get the most from our recovery. We must be willing to lay bare our difficulties if we expect to find solutions to problems that arise in our lives. There's an old expression sometimes heard in Narcotics Anonymous. We can't save our face and our ass at the same time. It isn't easy to share in a meeting when we have a number of years clean, only to dissolve into tears because life on life's terms has made us realize our powerlessness. But when the meeting ends and another member comes up and says, I really needed to hear what you had to say, we know that there is a God working in our lives. The taste of humility is never bitter. The rewards of humbling ourselves by asking for help sweetens our recovery. Just for today, if I need help, I will ask for it. I will put humility into action in my life. I like that. I really like that because honestly, I try to be a humble minded individual. It just makes life, as it says here, sweeter. It makes my life sweeter. It makes my life not only sweeter, but easier because how many of us have met individuals, they have so much arrogance. And I want to say like false pride because they really are shaky, unstable individuals on the inside, but they come from that thinking that to surrender or to ask for help is a weakness. That thinking never let them see you sweat. And then when everything falls apart, and then they become mandated to make our meetings because they broke out in felonies after a relapse. Now, all of a sudden, a lot of times they're still not even humble enough to admit that they just were too prideful to even ask for help. Because you know how we are, right? In recovery, you know how we are. We are the type of individuals that it takes everything in us to ask and to admit that we need help. We have this alter ego. So we have this thing going on with us that we don't want anyone to know that we don't have all of our ducks in a row, that we're not okay. And a lot of times that fear of exposing ourselves as we truly are and possibly being made fun of, being rejected, being gossiped about, that fear causes us to suffer in silence when we need not do that. And a lot of times the suffering is so great that we end up trying to put something on top of those negative feelings and emotions of hopelessness. We end up actually using. And that's that thinking where we back ourselves up into a corner that we cannot get out of, clean or alive sometimes. And that should never be the case. But it is often the case. And then, like I say, how many of us have seen individuals with their tails dragging out in public, unhoused, living in tent communities where they're actually using drugs and substances, or in a trap house using drug and substances to cover over that emotion of feeling like a failure or feeling so hopeless. And I just want to say to you, if you know someone that is out there struggling like that, when you look down on them, it should be because you're looking down to take their hand and pull them up. Never look down your nose at a still suffering addict or a still suffering person in general, because that level of judgment is the very type of spiritual principle that causes people to reap what they sow. That type of judgment is the very thing that invites judgment into your life. When you are seeing an individual that was too prideful to ask for help, maybe you offered to take them to meetings, maybe you offered to help them with their steps, maybe you offered to introduce them to some other meetings or some men or women in the fellowship that you thought were winners, and they just did not want to be bothered. They thought that the only problem was that they just needed to stop using drugs and everything would get better. And they stopped using for a time, but everything did not get better. They continued to see themselves in the mirror. They continued to have to deal with their temper, with their character defects, and the poor management of those things caused them to put something on top of that to relieve themselves from the reality. They needed something to change their perception. And so they began to use. And as you know, one is too many and 1,000 is never enough. And so they get so far from us. And when we see them again, you know, I sit in the office and I'm looking down over a park, and I cannot tell you the number of individuals that I have witnessed come into the rooms and be too prideful or too fearful to ask for help, even though it was being laid out to them on a silver plate. They would never partake of those gems and pieces of jewels that were being offered to them of recovery. And I see them out here with their bags, with their shopping carts, and I know that there's a piece of them that wishes that they had just come over one block and sat down, kept quiet, and listened to learn and learned to listen. Because we're not too far away from several. This house alone that I'm in is a recovery home. And then there's several agencies around, including ours, that have recovery services available. And, you know, that comes to this point. Humility in action is about being able to ask for help, not knowing that you just need help, but being able to ask for help when you need it. And then humility takes you a little bit further out, right? Because once you ask for help and it's offered to you, you have to be humble enough to receive it. See, because sometimes our answer does not come wrapped up in a bright red box with beautiful wrapping paper and a beautiful bow to match on top. Sometimes our answers don't come like that. Our help comes in a paper bag. Our help comes in a torn vessel, a torn paper bag, a torn individual that wears their scarves. And you may be judging their outsides, but if you sat and listened to them tell you why they had to go through the things that they went through, right? Why they're like they are, why they seem rough on the outside but tender on the inside. If you would not judge the messenger by their outsides, but be humble enough to receive the help in whatever package it comes in. And when I say brown paper bag, I'm using that as an analogy of something that is a gift that someone ran to the store and brought and didn't have time to wrap it up and make it look nice, but they know that you needed whatever they got for you. See, we need to keep it 100 and stop dinking around with this recovery thing, because a lot of us have a tendency to want to judge the outsides. I know for a fact, I listen to myself on this taping, not every day. Most of the time I go ahead and clear the tape out and set it up so that the podcast can be published. And then I don't go back to it until later in the evening. And I know for a fact, when I'm listening to myself, I'm amazed at some of the stuff that comes out of my mouth. I was like, did I just say, wow. Wow. Now, if I was a person who did not know who Mighty Stream was and I was listening to that, I probably would think to myself, this person uses some words that I'm not familiar with. That's just my own personal judgment, right? Of how I do the podcast. And I am challenged sometimes to just keep it 100 and keep it simple, not all of the book knowledge that I have, okay? So that's what I'm saying. If a person wants to judge me by my outsides or for the way that I sound sometimes, they might not be able to get what they need. But there's some people that would not look at anything that I'm saying as having any value, right? Because they know a lot of my history and they want to judge me on my past. I had one lady I saw at a hair store and she said, "Do you still dance?" And I had to think for a second. Do I still dance? Like dance on a pole, dance at the club, dance in front of the mirror in the bathroom at home? Yeah, I still dance. And then it dawned on me, when she knew me as a using version. And that person would dance anywhere she felt like it. And a lot of times couldn't find my shoes to even walk, put them back on to go home. Right. So I was like, yeah, see, some people still hold that old image of you, not the recovered individual, in mind. And that stops them from getting the help that they need. There's a lot of undercover addicts. There's a lot of undercover addicts still in the closet with their disease of addiction because someone convinced them that what they're doing, how they're using, is sociably acceptable. But they know, and I know, and you know, that their use has gotten way out of hand. They use when they wake up, they use throughout the day, they use before they go to bed, they must use in order to survive, right? And so this is a person that has the disease of addiction that has gone undiagnosed. They're still in denial. And that person is going to have a hard time being humble enough to ask for the help. Don't let that be you. You know, I'm raising two children that are not my own. They're great nephews, and they have so many characteristics of mine. If you looked at me and my husband, because we're a mixed couple, you would think that these boys were ours because they're biracial children, and their behaviors are so much like mine. You cannot tell that I am not their biological mother. The way that they talk, their dictation when they speak, the way that they love and nurture people around them, these are all things that they got from me. And the point that I'm making about that is that your essence, your recovery, your presentation of who you are has a spiritual component that goes with it. And that is not something that you can get away from very easily. But if you stay the course and you continue to work your recovery in a humble fashion, you will find others coming along the way with you, wanting to get what you have to offer and not even be concerned about the outside messenger. That they will be humble enough to ask you, can you sponsor me? Do you have some time that we can talk once a week? And you will find yourself in a spiritual sense starting to partner, parent, work with, mentor, right? Other individuals because they want what you have. But it starts with your own level of humility. And then that exudes a presence that other people pick up, and it becomes an attraction rather than a promotion. And they come to you and they'll ask. I never worry about the individual that asks me to sponsor them, but don't do the work. I never worry about that person. I don't. I mean, in the back of my head, I might think, I hope they're doing okay. But I believe if they reached out to me, they're going to remember at some point in time the purpose for which they asked me to sponsor them and get busy. I try never to overthink. And I definitely don't take it personal because I know who and whose I am today. I don't take disconnect personal in any kind of way. And in fact, I embrace it. I let people know as humbly as I possibly can, if I'm not working for you, even if you don't have the guts to come to me and talk to me, which I wish that you would, you have my permission far in advance to find someone that you will and can work with. I don't take disconnect or dissonance in a relationship in recovery personal. I can't afford to. So I hope that this has been helpful for you today. I'm looking forward to doing the spiritual principle a day. And I would almost be willing to bet anything that it is based on humility. I hope that you have a beautiful day, and I will be talking to you tomorrow.